In this video, I'm going to show you how to replace your front engine mount. It's located right down here. So if you look straight down between your charge pipe and the intake pipe, you can see underneath the starter that nut right there. That is the top mounting nut for the front engine mount. This is a 15mm nut. I put my socket with a long extension and a swivel on it. Let's try to break it free. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to jack up the engine in hopes of breaking the bracket free from the top of that engine mount. Next we need to take this shield down, so I'm just going to go around, and my bolts are 12mm. Yours might be different, so it looks like someone replaced these. That's why mine might be different. So just go around, take off everything that holds on this shield. And now that the shield is off, I'm putting a pull jack right here on the transmission side, right next to this mount over here, and I have a rubber pad in between to protect the surface from any damage. Now I'm going to loosen up the two nuts here that hold this mount onto the frame. Use an 18mm socket to do that. To make things a little easier, I'm going to also remove these two 14mm bolts, which are going to therefore let me remove this whole mount. Okay, now this is out of the way, makes a lot more room for us, and it frees up the engine from being tied to the subframe over here. Now let's lift up on the engine, and hopefully the motor mount breaks free from the top there. That's why I didn't unbolt it off the bottom first, so it can pull and separate. And if not, then with the pressure of the engine pulling it up, maybe we can help it out. So my idea worked. I'm going to put this back down. But the problem is I can't go high enough with the engine to actually remove this mount. So what I need to do is loosen up the rear engine mount, which looks exactly like this one. It's actually the same exact part. And once I loosen the bolt on the bottom for that one, we can remove the bolts for this one, which is located right through that little opening. And then we can hopefully remove the mount. So let's jump to the rear and remove the lower bolt for the rear mount. If you look right in between the subframe and the sway bar, you'll notice that bolt right there, it's actually bolted onto the steering rack, and that is the lower bolt for the engine mount. I'm going to try and fit a 3/8 drive extension in here. On top of it, put a socket, obviously. I was able to fit a 3/8 drive extension in there with a socket. Let's remove the bolt. It's a 15mm. And now with the rear one free, let's remove this front one, also a 15mm socket. And now, once again, let's lift this up, and it should let us go up far enough to remove this mount. Okay. Now we just have to find a way to sneak it out of here. Next, I want to remove this shield here, well, these two, because I'm going to take the engine mount out through here. So I'm going to take this T25 Torx bolt out, or screw, I guess, screws into plastic. Pull this shield down. There we go, slide it out. And with that out, you can see right here there's a 10mm bolt that we have to remove. That'll free up the other shield. Okay, now you can take this down, and we're going to fish the engine mount through here because there's a lot more room. I'm going to use a pry bar and gently pry the lower radiator hose just a little bit to get clearance to get this engine mount out, and slide it past it. Okay, and here it is. Now let's take the new one, slide it up in here, and basically do the same in reverse and try to get it situated in there. Okay, it's in there. Let's put the shield up. The shield has this hook here, which needs to slide in a tab that goes in the bumper. So just make sure that lines up. Make sure the front of the shield gets tucked up into the bumper also. Now take the 10mm bolt, secure the shield. Perfect. And now let's put the smaller shield on. Slide it up, it gets clipped on over here onto the fender liner, and this actually has to slide up and over. Okay, there we go. Make sure that slides. Now clip it in. Okay, put the T25 Torx screw back in, and now let's resecure the motor mount. Now grab the engine mount, try to slide it up with the stud in through the bracket that it mounts to. That's going to be a little tricky, but make sure that tab lines up. There it is. Let's drop the engine down and seat the motor mount into its groove. It does. Perfect. All right. Drop it all the way down. And now the engine is sitting on the motor mount. Check the bolt hole underneath. That lines up, so that is perfect. Obviously the stud at the top lines up, so I think now it's time to resecure everything. Remember, we also unbolted the rear motor mount through the subframe, which looks exactly like this one, so we're gonna have to double check that one as well. And that one lines up. Yep, it's time to bolt everything back up. So let's start the bolt in. Start it by hand to make sure it doesn't cross thread. And let's snug it up while we're at it. Now let's put the rear one in. Let's get the bolt in here. Let's get this mount back in. I'm going to slide the two studs down and then put the two bolts in at the back, because these are going to be harder to line up, so don't start the nuts in for the studs yet. Start these in first. We'll tighten these and then we'll tighten the front, because the front has some adjustment back and forth, whereas this does not. Tighten these up. Now you can put on the two mounting nuts that bolted onto the subframe. Tighten these up as well. Now we can put the shield up. Now let's get this shield up and resecure it. And back at the top, let's put the nut on. I'm going to try and fish it down with my extension. I put a little piece of a rag in between the socket and the actual nut, and that holds it onto the socket for me. But the trick is going to be getting it started here, because I'm at such an angle. Okay, tighten it up. There's no way I can torque this with a swivel and such a long extension, so just do your best to make it nice and tight. Get your tool out of here, and there you have it.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.